The academia-industry interface is more important than ever as biomedical innovation continues to attain new heights, with European and UK innovators excelling in areas such as biobanking, therapeutic startups, and new modalities. In particular, when we talk about Cambridge monoclonal antibodies. Welcome to a special edition of the BioCentury This Week podcast. Today we are previewing the debut BioCentury Grand Rounds Europe Conference. It's scheduled for September 17th through the 19th in Cambridge in the UK. The event is the sister meeting to our BioCentury Grand Rounds US, which we wrapped up in June in Chicago. Joining me to help set the stage for Grand Rounds are Kristin-Anne Rutter, Executive Director, Cambridge University Health Partners, Sally Mardikian, Director of Business Development at Astrazeneca, Kathryn Chapman, Executive Director of Innovate Cambridge, and Anne Horgan, Partner at Cambridge Innovation Capital. And from the BioCentury side, we have VP and Editor-in-Chief Simone Fishburne, our Chief Tennis Correspondent as well, but we won't be digging into the Wimbledon results on this podcast. We'll save it for our regular podcasts. And, of course, none other than Director of Biopharma Intelligence, Kathryn Chapman. Let's cut to the chase. I'd like to bring in our Editor-in-Chief, Simone, and ask her what she's most excited about and what the general theme of Grand Rounds Europe will be.
Thank you, Jeff. And I'm very excited about this upcoming Grand Rounds. As most people inside the company and some outside the company know, I've been wanting to do a conference in the UK and in Cambridge for a long time, my accent notwithstanding, as a reason. But one of the reasons is that there's just so much happening there, and I really feel like it's an exciting hub of activity. We'll talk a little bit more about the broader ecosystem in the UK and opportunities. So Grand Rounds continues the theme that we've started with the previous Grand Rounds of looking at translational bottlenecks. And these are scientific translational bottlenecks at the academia industry interface, areas where progress in academia could enable a step change in industry. And I'm going to, in a minute, my colleague, who I'm going to call Chief Geek Correspondent, Kathryn Chapman, can talk about some of the specifics, but I do want to highlight 2 or 3 sessions that I'm very excited about that I think really tap into this theme. So one of them is the opening keynote lecture by Steve Jackson, who's a professor at Cambridge and a big leader at Cancer Research UK. Steve Jackson is a pioneer in understanding DNA damage and the DNA damage response. He's founded several companies, and so he really does sit at this academia industry interface. We can talk about the history of Cambridge and the names that have been there, but I think he's one of the current names that is in big lights in that area. We also have what is going to be a great session with Minister of Science, Patrick Vallance, in a conversation with Kate Bingham, who, of course, is a VC leading SV Health Investors, but better known perhaps for her role as leading the UK's vaccine effort during COVID. But let me just talk about a couple more panels, if I might, because these are in our disease track. And I want to sort of emphasize how this meeting tries to really dig into questions in hot areas, but quite specific questions. So in obesity, a lot of people are talking about obesity and what needs to happen there in terms of durability. There's also the issue of creating muscle-sparing medications that can focus on fat removal rather than muscle removal. But one of the key things that we're focusing on in this panel is how do you measure that? Because most people and most studies are just measuring weight loss, and that doesn't distinguish between whether you are losing muscle or losing fat. And so one of the key things is how to create better systems for measuring that difference that will really enable this next generation of therapeutics. And one more panel that is going to be moderated. Both of these are actually being moderated by my colleagues. Obesity one is by Stephen Hansen, and the next one, the precision neuropsych one, is going to be moderated by Selena Koch. And that one is really looking at it as time to go beyond sort of these very archaic definitions of psychiatric disease and get a lot more precision based in there, using longitudinal studies and deep phenotyping to really redefine how those diseases are understood and therefore how you can create therapies against them. I'm going to stop there, Jeff, because we've got like 15 panels or something that I could go into depth on all of them, but I'll let a few other people do that.
That sounds great. I do want to turn to Kathryn right now and just see what she wants to tease up for us.
Sure. Well, with the Grand Rounds series, one thing we really seek to do is highlight local ecosystem strengths. We collaborate, and you'll be meeting some of our collaborators from the Regional Host Committee, and we get into, what is this area really known for? What emerging innovations are coming forward? And one thing that I think we can all point to is how the UK really leads on biobanking. And, I lead our literature monitoring team. It is so common that researchers from all over the world are supporting their new target proposals with data from the UK Biobank. And then now we've got our Future Health and more initiatives coming out. And so one of the themes that I'm really seeing as a thread across our panels is data generation for prediction. So this idea that whether it be patient and healthy individual data and increasingly longitudinal data that can help enable disease interventions, more understanding of disease transitions, or data at the level of protein structure and protein ligand binding, and all of the initiatives happening locally with regards to that from the DeepMind teams that are based in the area and other local protein initiatives that are coming out. There are these threads of researchers in this ecosystem pulling together large amounts of data to enable predictive capacity for molecule design, for target discovery, and beyond. And so that's a theme that I think you'll be seeing across our modality panels, where we actually, instead of going deep into, say, cell therapy, gene therapy, those kind of newer modalities, we're actually looking at what some might call older, more traditional modalities of biologics and small molecules, but digging into innovative approaches happening there, all the way through panels that we're having in our enabling technologies track about foundation models and what's happening in the current era. I don't know if you've noticed, I'm calling it hot foundation model summer because a lot of people, DeepMind, everyone are publishing their foundation models in different areas. So we'll be digging into some of that, as well as continuing the quantum computing thread we started in Chicago around where that technology that's not quite here, but will be here soon, could take us. These are some of the themes I'm excited about. We've really appreciated working with our regional host committee to dig into what this area really excels in.
Yeah, that was awesome, Kathryn. I mean, as you said at sort of the beginning there is, we really like to focus in a big way on, the host city. We've been to Nashville with Grand Rounds. Obviously, there's a lot of great things going on in Nashville, even beyond life sciences. You may have heard about it. John Bon Jovi, in fact, made an appearance at our Grand Rounds meeting in Nashville, or at least we made an appearance at his bar, and he was there and gave
I'm kind of wondering, I am pretty sure the UK can cough up a good musician or two. I swing by this meeting, don't you think?
It's very true. I do have, as you can see behind me, a little David Bowie going on, and
he probably won't turn up there
than that. We want to talk Cambridge here, and who better than Kristin-Anne? She is Executive Director of Cambridge University Health Partners. And I understand this is your first podcast, Kristin-Anne. Is that really true?
My first ever podcast, and what a lot of fun I'm having doing it with you all. And just as much fun as I hope when the conference comes to Cambridge.
But you must promise not to tell anybody what goes on behind the scenes, okay? That's the deal. Otherwise, the whole conference collapses.
No, well, I was thinking about musicians actually. I'm off to a Lana Del Rey concert tomorrow night, so she's visiting the UK.
Oh, fabulous, fabulous.
And you'll be putting in a word for us, I take
I'll
it?
put in a word.
Okay.
Put in a word. But no, I mean, we're really excited that this conference is coming here to Cambridge. I mean, Cambridge, for those who don't know, is Europe's largest biotech cluster. It's got the highest intensity of science in tech anywhere in the world, actually, if you sort of divide by our relatively small population. 27 Nobel Prizes just in medicine. And Jeff, you were mentioning monoclonal antibody technology, obviously at the heart of so many drugs and making a difference in the world today. Also, we're a leading player in the Human Genome Project, following the discovery of DNA, obviously. And then so many opportunities. These often there's an interesting theme. Maybe we should do a pub crawl when everybody comes, but a lot of these inventions seem to have been dreamed up in pubs. The Panton Arms, for example, was where apparently the machines that are now used to sequence most of the 90% of the human genomes in the world were invented. So lots happening. I know this is a life science conference, but I think it would be remiss actually not to point out that the thing about Cambridge is it's not just life sciences. Arm invented the chip technology that's used in most mobile phones. Cambridge scientists invented Dolby sounds, fuel cells that took man to the moon, etc. And one of the things we think is going to be really powering the next generation, what's next in breakthroughs, is that intersection of tech and biology. A really good example of that is the neurotechnology program we've got going on. How do we get devices into the brain? So I don't know what's next. You were saying, Jeff, what's next? This is what this conference is due, but we've got lots. Karen, you were talking about biobanking, etc., and we're really excited that the National Health Data Research Service is going to be based up at the Wellcome. That's going to provide the world with access to the UK's routinely collected healthcare data linked to those biobanks. So that's coming to Cambridge. We've got the Laboratory of Molecular Biology, who's taken the first steps at mapping all the connections in the human brain. I mean, if you think back to the Human Genome Project, we're at that start now. It's called the Connectome, if you haven't heard about it, and they've published the Fly Brain. But what are the connections? And what that's going to help, I think, unlock some of these understandings of what's really going on in the brain and in mental health. We're obviously also the Centre for the UK's initiative in quantum compute in health, based out of the University of Cambridge. So much going on that I hope people will find out about at this conference. And I think, why does it happen here? Well, it's probably the density, the power of proximity, but it's also we've got real strengths in hospitals, academia, and industry all in one place. And that's what this conference is going to bring together. And that's what we are really focused on. My job is to really focus on what do we continue to do to fuel this fabulous ecosystem. And an example of that is our new cancer hospital that's going up, where we have Astrazeneca, the university, and healthcare all in one building, working alongside each other on precision cancer technology.
I'm just going to jump in there because I have to pick up on your Connectome, because this is a big feature for BioCentury's conferences in general, including this one, which is the ability to connect people. And so what we aim to do, and we will be bringing, Jeff, I think you've got a list of a host of VCs who are going to be there, VCs and farmers, just to emphasize, we're bringing people from well beyond the great shores of the UK, or actually of Britain, I should say, for those who know the difference, and to this conference. And definitely our goal is to connect in this Connectome emerging innovators with VCs and what we call the buy side, and really to create, and maybe we do some of these connections on this pub crawl. Been a while since I did one of those. So back to you, Jeff. Do you want to rein us in here?
No, that was fantastic. And actually now we're going to jump over to Anne, and I did want to pick up on the investor theme. Obviously, Anne is a partner at Cambridge Innovation Capital, which funds a lot of super cool early stage biotechs. Other investors at the meeting, Abingworth will be there, Blackstone, GV, Medici, Monograph, Omega Funds, SV, of course, we'll have Kate Bingham, as I believe Simone said at the top, and Syncona, which has its new strategy. So that is something you can read about in BioCentury, and you'll be able to talk to them firsthand at the meeting. And let's see, a lot I want to ask you about, but I want to start with the panel you are going to be moderating. It's got a cool name, Small Compounds, Big Potential. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'd be delighted. And perhaps I'll try to thread in the connectome theme here. And as you've heard, Cambridge Innovation Capital, we love really exciting science, technology, and the opportunity to build global big companies. But what we think is we can do that very well from Cambridge because it's a great hub, as you have heard earlier. This panel is really exciting me, actually, because I'm a reformed chemist. So some people may know that I spent many of my formative years in a lab making molecules, in particular for obesity and pain. So I think there's a connection here to some of the panels Simone talked about earlier. And what I've seen over the last 20 odd years is the evolution of the small molecules. They have been there for a long time, right? They're still a very strong pillar of our therapeutic arsenal. And going back to the evolution of how we treat patients, we have all these really great new modalities. We talked about monoclonal antibodies, where, of course, Cambridge has been playing a huge part in bringing to the fore. We've got now more complex ones. We've got ADCs, we've got advanced therapies, but good old small molecules are still pretty important. And just taking a quick look back at how many small molecules have been approved last year by the FDA, it still hovered around the 60% mark. So even though we have some new modalities to play around with, certain targets and certain indications are still very well treated with small molecules. We do see a number of new modalities coming out of Cambridge, and in particular, trying to marry the best of, for example, small molecules and antibodies. And a company I'm sure you have heard of called Bicycle Therapeutics is a great example of that, making the most of Greg Winter's understanding of biologics and antibodies and turning that into a really cool new modality, which are bicycles. And at the other end, small molecules have been used for degrading proteins. So we have the PROTAC examples. A really cool way of doing this is using the inherent biological machinery to try to get rid of big aggregates in the brain, for example, whilst leaving monomeric protein intact. And that's another example of how you can use small molecules. And that's a company called Fintech Therapeutics. And I think the question is what next, right? We've had this workhorse of the therapy, but what are we going to do differently? Or what are these new technologies we touched upon, starting from computing influence, AI, better understanding of how proteins are folded, how they react, and all these kinds of knowledge and data we've been getting, how that influences how we develop new generations of small molecules. I'm really excited about this panel because I think we'll be touching upon really new recipes of perhaps old components. And it will be fascinating to see how the intersection and the connection of various disciplines are leading us to this next generation of molecules.
And Sally, we've been really glad to have Astrazeneca as part of our regional host committee. You're such an anchor for the space as a pharma with deep ties, not just in Cambridge, but also across the UK. So can you give us some insight into how Astrazeneca integrates itself with innovators in Cambridge and beyond?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Karen. So firstly, I'll just give you a bit of an introduction. I'm sure you know about AstraZeneca, but to your listeners, so we are a global biopharmaceutical company focusing on discovery, development, and commercialization of medicines in oncology, rare diseases, biopharmaceuticals, and in respiratory, cardiovascular, and renal and metabolism. And the reason we are in Cambridge and our global headquarters are in Cambridge is because of the power of scientific collaboration and our commitment to advancing health through innovation. So that's why we've championed scientific collaboration here, and we work really hard on cross-sector partnerships. We have over 850 partnerships across the UK, and over 200 of them are science-led collaborations here in Cambridge. I'm just going to give you a couple of key examples that are ongoing at the moment. So we've got the Blue Sky collaboration, and this is with the Medical Research Council, LMB, which stands for Laboratory of Molecular Biology. The LMB are actually neighbours of the AstraZeneca headquarters Discovery Centre on the Cambridge Biomedical campus. And what we're doing here is we're supporting a range of preclinical research projects. And the aim is to improve our understanding of the fundamental biology. And so these collaborations are normally led by one AstraZeneca PI and one LMB PI. And one of our key successes recently was the spin out of a company called Sortera Bio, and they've developed a machine learning enabled drug discovery platform. And we're very proud that we supported this company.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because the Grand Rounds conference is all about that academia industry interface, and what you're describing is precisely that.
Absolutely, yeah. And this is why I think these examples are important to bring up here, because I think we want your viewers to hear about what AstraZeneca is doing and how important it is for us to collaborate with our academic ecosystem in Cambridge. But also I think it's important to make the point that it's beyond Cambridge. So for example, we have a pan-UK innovation initiative called the Oxford-Cambridge OxCam Growth Corridor. And there's also a Cambridge-Manchester Innovation Cluster that we are supporting and involved in. Interesting fact is that across OxCam, we supported 2 billion of economic activity and 7,000 jobs in 2024.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I want to bring Kathryn, very patient Kathryn, of course, Executive Director at Innovate Cambridge. And Kathryn, there's been a lot of talk, at least we talk about this a lot on our morning editorial call, that this could be the UK's moment of opportunity amid all the turbulence that's happening in the US, NIH, of course, being hit quite a bit. Universities are under stress right now in their, do we call them conversations with the Trump administration? How do you look at that prospect from your position there? Is this the UK's moment?
I think the first thing to say is that we have a lot of sympathy and empathy for our US colleagues, particularly those that are in the current research environment. But I mean, I think it might be the UK's moments for a number of reasons, not just the US turbulence.
Awesome.
So I think, so I think at the minute though, if you think about our relationship in terms of the UK, but also Europe with the US, this is a long-standing relationship in terms of the research in the biosciences that we have really enjoyed for decades. And actually, I think the first thing to say is that this conference will enable us, I think, to catalyze the next phase of that in terms of academic research, development, talent, investment, trade. And actually, we're pretty excited about that and kind of working with our US colleagues around that. Because, you talked, Simone, about connections. And I think the conference as well is obviously about collaboration, isn't it? I mean, if we want to solve the global health challenges, we need to find better ways to partner and collaborate. And this is across sectors, so between academia and industry like this conference does, but also across disciplines and how we apply AI and quantum and all our advanced manufacturing knowledge to drug discovery at the moment and to the life science sector at pace. So I think, the UK has got a lot to offer. I think we've seen from the recent comprehensive spending review that UK government is continuing to invest in the research base, and we have an incredibly strong research base in the life sciences and AI and quantum and all of the other technologies, but also in talent and PhDs and, the ambition of the researchers that are in the UK, spin outs and IP, and you talk about the local ecosystem. Well, actually, the University of Cambridge spins out more companies than any other university in Europe. And so the environment is really sort of fertile for spin outs. And, Kristin-Anne has talked about the strengths in antibody technology, the sequencing, the genomics. I mean, the history and maturity of the ecosystem that the conference is being held in is just kind of second to none. So I think absolutely it is the UK's moment, but I think it's the UK's moment for a number of reasons and not just because of the turbulence in the US.
I'm actually just going to jump in and totally support that, Kathryn, but also like a dose of where we are today, because this is what we do at BioCentury. We look at the grim as well. And, it's a really difficult funding environment globally. And I think that must affect UK innovators as well. And, we do have a panel that we're lining up called a Tough Love panel. The idea of this is we have some folk who've got some thoughts for what innovators, people at this academia industry interface, people wanting to spin out companies, some things they might need to hear. And I'm just sort of wondering if we can just take a quick pulse. If you had to give some tough love, what might it be? Just in a few words, maybe.
I'm happy to jump in there. I think the real question is, what problem are you addressing for the health service or the country? How is your innovation going to either help get people more productive, reduce the cost of their healthcare, get them back to work, or actually reduce the cost of caring for them in the health system? And if you can't say that, you're going to have a really tough job selling into the health system at the moment.
That's very true. And building on that, one of the themes that came out of Grand Rounds Chicago was this question around platform disease fit, or this idea that we have so many brilliant academics developing really interesting platform technologies, and then there's sort of hammers in search of nails. One of the take-homes from a key panel there was that being flexible about what your killer application is for your platform, it might not be what you initially set out to do. There was this one local innovator who talked about a really interesting sort of serial gene editing technology that they had. Originally, they wanted to make therapeutics themselves, but realized that actually the killer app within the ecosystem was as a manufacturing play, helping companies developing their own therapeutics better manufacture them. And so it's the kind of thing where not holding too tightly to your original vision and being flexible as you search for what is the key application for your technology, and really immersing yourself with ecosystem players who know what the physician KOLs are looking for, who know what the health systems are looking to reimburse, really taking their advice on where to go to take your technology farthest. Maybe that's my tough love.
Absolutely, completely concur with what you just heard. And actually, I would add on to that the vision, and being able to articulate the vision of what one is trying to do. It's not just finding the application, but it's having the ambition to grow a global business, not something which is going to be local or national, because the health is global. So having the ambition and the vision to build a company that can really truly grow and become a global player, rather than just having a nice, neat little business, but nothing ambitious enough to really change the way things are done or the way patients are treated.
So with the tough love question, what I always tell our the companies we support and companies that we mentor is that you do need to talk to as many different sectors, as many different companies as possible. Don't just focus on pharma, because your technology may have applications in other industries. So just think broadly, and don't just think about coming up with a solution that's pharma specific. There could be applications in other industries.
Excellent. Well, I like this notion of sorting things out in the pub, coming up with grand ambitions over a pint. I sure wish I was going to be there in Cambridge, but you will be in very good hands with Simone and Karen. We'll also have my colleague Stephen Hansen. He'll be doing a wrap-up podcast at the event. And Selena, of course, will be there, my executive editor counterpart. So I'd just like to say to all of you that joined us today, thank you so much. I want to give a few more details about the conference. You will find the complete schedule of the panels, these things that we've been teasing, at BioCenturyGrandRounds.com. There's a link to register for the conference there. We still have slots remaining to join the presenting company class for Grand Rounds Europe 2025. They're going fast, so register today. And early bird rates are still in effect. Sorry for the marketing spiel here, but this is what we do as well. Early bird rates, July 11th. So hop to it.
And I just want to jump in there with a plug for the scientific poster session, the crown jewel of the Grand Rounds series, if you will. So one of the things we really like to do is highlight science from the local ecosystem. Yes, from the presenting companies, but also from the academics. For any academics listening here, or if you're recovered academics with friends still at it, we are looking for presenters. There's a special academic rate that you can take advantage of, especially before July 11th, to apply to present a poster. We're looking for translational innovations across all disease areas. It could also be an enabling tool or technology that could help unlock a translational bottleneck for drug or diagnostic developers. And this is a space where you do not have to dumb down your science at all. You can really get into the weeds, because the investors, the industry folks who come here are really science forward and want to get into it with all of you. And so if you have an innovation that's maybe spin out, you're thinking about going that direction, you maybe want the counsel of really seasoned industry executives as you go forward and think about it, we invite you to join BioCentury Grand Rounds, to apply to present a poster, to take advantage of our one-on-one partnering system, to schedule meetings with these luminaries that we'll have come into town, and we hope to see you there.
As Karen affectionately called Grand Rounds Chicago, our Geekchella, I, of course, plugged it as Geekapalooza. You may think of Grand Rounds Europe as our Geektonbury meeting.
You were going to go with GlastonGeek, but there you go.
I like GlastonGeek. Actually, it'd be a lot easier to say. And
a little bit easier, right?
I have a habit of mispronouncing things from England in English. All right. Well, thank you all for joining. We look forward to the event, and please register and join us. You'll get to meet Anne and Kathryn and Sally and Kristin-Anne, along with the BioCentury team. Kendall Square Orchestra provides the music for BioCentury This Week. The group connects science and technology professionals and other members of the greater Boston community to collaborate, innovate, and inspire through music while supporting causes related to healthcare and education.